For every loved WWE video game that had fans staying up playing all night, there's one abomination that made everyone want to throw their controller through the screen. Kicking off our list with one of my all-time faves, SVR 2007. When this game hit the shelves in 2006, it didn't just meet expectations, it absolutely demolished them. What made SVR 2007 so special was how it captured the ruthless aggression era at its peak. The roster was stacked with legends and rising stars, the season mode told compelling stories, and even GM mode was top tier. The graphics on Xbox 360 were jaw-dropping for the time, and even the PS2 version held up well. Smashing someone's face into the ring post or slamming them through the announce table felt brutal and impactful. The Money in the Bank ladder match made its debut, and another huge plus point of this game was its legendary soundtrack. Nearly 2 decades later, fans still boot this one up, and it holds up better than most modern wrestling games. SVR 2007 set a standard that the series spent years trying to recapture. But if SVR 2007 showed how to do everything right, WWE 2K20 was a masterclass in how to destroy an entire franchise in one release. WWE 2K20 wasn't just a bad game. It was a disaster so catastrophic that 2K literally skipped the next year's release to recover from the damage. The game released in October 2019, and within hours, the internet exploded with clips of the most broken and glitchy gameplay anyone had ever seen. But the problems went far beyond technical issues. The gameplay itself felt sluggish and unresponsive. Career mode was boring and lifeless. And the roster, while decent on paper, couldn't save a game that fundamentally didn't work. The backlash was so severe that 2K had no choice but to delay WWE 2K21 entirely, leaving fans without a new WWE game for the first time in years. However, redemption stories are wrestling's bread and butter, and WWE 2K22 proved that even the most broken franchises can find their way back. After taking a year off to regroup, 2K returned in March 2022 with a game that felt like a complete reset. 2K22 abandoned the sluggish simulation style that had been dragging the series down and embraced faster, more arcade-style gameplay that actually felt fun. Reversals were satisfying again, finishers had impact, and matches flowed naturally instead of feeling like you were watching paint dry. The improvements extended beyond just gameplay, though. GM mode made its triumphant return after over a decade away. My Faction introduced a new mode that, while controversial to some, provided hours of content for those who enjoyed it. The Showcase mode featuring Rey Mysterio's career was well done, and the Create a Wrestler suite offered the most customization options the series had seen in years. Most importantly, the game was stable. It didn't crash every 5 minutes, wrestlers didn't turn into horror movie characters, and people could actually play online without the servers exploding. WWE 2K22 saved the franchise and reminded everyone why they fell in love with WWE games in the first place. But switching gears from the 2K series, let's talk about one of the most fun experimental WWE games that became an instant classic. WWE All-Stars was so different, so unapologetically fun, that it became the best modern arcade wrestling game. Released in March 2011, All-Stars threw simulation out the window and went full cartoon superhero mode. Wrestlers were jacked beyond belief, moves were over the top and explosive, and the entire experience felt like playing a fighting game designed specifically for wrestling fans. What made All-Stars special was how it balanced fun with depth. You could juggle opponents in the air with combos, catch them mid-flight for devastating slams, and chain together finishers that would keep you playing for hours. Anyone could pick up the controller and pull off spectacular moves within minutes, but mastering the timing of counters and learning each wrestler's unique moveset created a surprisingly high skill ceiling. The fantasy warfare mode that pitted legends against modern stars was pure fan service, with matchups like Hulk Hogan versus John Cena and Stone Cold versus CM Punk. The only real complaints were the limited creation suite and thin roster, but All-Stars proved that wrestling games didn't have to be realistic to be incredible. But while All-Stars took creative risks that paid off beautifully, WWE 2K15 played it safe and still managed to fail spectacularly. Released in October 2014, WWE 2K15 looked gorgeous. The lighting, character models, and presentation were impressive for the time. Unfortunately, that's where the praise ends. Everything else about this game felt like a massive step backward, as if 2K had deleted half the features from previous games. The gameplay was painfully slow, weighted down by a horrible stamina system. Career mode was an absolute joke. Creation modes felt limited. Match types disappeared, modes vanished, and the overall content felt low quality compared to what SVR 2011 had offered 4 years earlier. The showcase mode featuring CM Punk and Shawn Michaels was admittedly cool, but one good mode couldn't save a game that felt unfinished and uninspired. WWE 2K15 proved that pretty graphics mean nothing if the game underneath is hollow, and it left fans worried about the franchise's future under 2K's leadership. However, it's not just 2K that had flop games. Even the SVR series had some stinkers that are better forgotten. Coming off the incredible momentum of SVR 2007 and 2008, this entry felt like the series hitting a creative wall. Released in November 2008, SVR 2009 introduced Road to WrestleMania mode, which featured some genuinely entertaining storylines with John Cena's campaign, Triple H's DX reunion storyline, and Chris Jericho's Mystery Attackers angle that kept things interesting. The creative finisher feature was a cool addition that let you customize your signature moves in new ways. But here's the problem. That's basically all the game had going for it. GM mode was completely removed. The roster inexplicably had almost no legends. Career mode was replaced with a bare-bones mode where you just wrestled matches with zero storyline context. The camera angles were atrocious, and once you finished Road to WrestleMania, there was literally nothing else to do. Now don't get me wrong, SVR 2009 wasn't terrible. The core gameplay was still solid and the soundtrack remained fire. But it felt empty, stripped down, and like the developers had forgotten what made the previous games so replayable. But speaking of replayability, let's talk about a game that's still being played and modded over 2 decades after its release. No Mercy might just be the most influential wrestling game ever made, and its impact is still felt in 2025. Released for the N64 in November 2000, No Mercy represented the absolute peak of the Aki wrestling engine. What made No Mercy special was how it nailed the feel of pro wrestling. Everything about it, from the grappling system to the roster and the creation suite, felt so fun that you could keep playing for hours. Matches had a natural flow. The branching story mode gave you choices that mattered. Weapons felt brutal. Backstage brawls were chaotic, and the variety of match types kept things fresh. Plus, the attention to detail was insane. Each wrestler had unique mannerisms, taunts, and movesets that perfectly captured their real-life counterparts. But here's the truly remarkable part. No Mercy's influence never died. Fan games like Wrestling Revolution are built on No Mercy's foundation. THQ spent years trying to replicate it. 2K22 openly tried to capture its arcade feel. AEW hired No Mercy's director specifically to recreate that magic. But nothing came close to the original version of No Mercy. While No Mercy gets most of the glory from the N64 era, its predecessor deserves just as much recognition for setting the stage. After WCW NWO Revenge showed what the Aki engine was capable of, WrestleMania 2000 brought that same smooth, addictive gameplay to WWF fans who had been stuck with mediocre options for years. Create a Wrestler was incredibly fun for 1999. Create a pay-per-view mode let you book your own shows, and the Championship Creator meant you could design custom titles for your created wrestlers to chase. The season mode, while not as deep as No Mercy's would be, offered enough variety to keep you coming back. While it's now overshadowed by its legendary sequel, WrestleMania 2000 was the game that proved WWF games could be just as good as WCW's, and it deserves credit for laying the groundwork for No Mercy's eventual perfection. However, if we're talking about modern games that captured that same magic in a new era, WWE 2K19 stands as the best wrestling game of the 2K generation. Released in October 2018, 2K19 was the culmination of everything the series had been building toward since 2K took over. After years of experimentation with simulation-style gameplay that often felt slow, this game finally found the perfect balance. The gameplay was responsive and satisfying. Career mode had a fun story. Universe mode offered endless customization. Daniel Bryan's Showcase mode took you through his entire journey from rookie to WrestleMania main eventer. And the Creation Suite was the most comprehensive in the 2K series history, with community creations allowing players to download thousands of custom wrestlers, arenas, and shows. What really set this game apart was its longevity. It carried the WWE gaming community for over 3 years. When a wrestling game can hold a community's attention for 3+ years, you know you've got something special. Speaking of special, WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2011 proved that sometimes the best way to end a series is by giving the fans something special and going out on top. SVR 2011 was the final game in the SmackDown vs. Raw lineage before the series transitioned to just WWE and eventually WWE 2K. This game took everything that worked about SVR 2010's creation tools and refined them. Weapons didn't just clip through the environment anymore, they had weight and collision. You could slam someone through a table in ways that felt brutally satisfying. TLC matches became absolute mayhem with improved ladder mechanics and destruction. The graphics were phenomenal for the PS3 era, looking sharper and more polished than any previous entry. Road to WrestleMania mode delivered wild, entertaining storylines that included time travel, backstage areas you could explore openly, and enough variety to keep you engaged for hours. Universe mode made its debut, replacing GM mode with a more hands-off simulation. While some missed the strategic depth of GM mode, Universe mode's storytelling and automatic rivalry creation made every playthrough feel unique. The roster was stacked with top-tier talent from the PG era, and the gameplay struck that perfect balance between simulation and arcade that made matches fun. The series couldn't have asked for a better final chapter. However, if we're talking about games that defined their era, we have to acknowledge the GameCube's hidden gems. Released in 2004 and 2005 respectively, WWE Day of Reckoning 1 and 2 were essentially spiritual successors to the N64 titles. The gameplay felt familiar to anyone who loved No Mercy, but customized for the GameCube's capabilities. Both games featured surprisingly good story modes that actually made you care about your created wrestler's journey through WWE's ranks. What set Day of Reckoning apart was its attention to detail in the mechanics. The ability to break up pins and submissions mid-move added a layer of strategy that most wrestling games at the time ignored. The grappling system felt smooth and intuitive, and the roster, while not massive, featured the ruthless aggression era's best talent during their prime years. Day of Reckoning 2 improved on the original with better graphics, more match types, and refined gameplay, though it also added a stamina meter that some players found annoying. These games never reached the mainstream popularity of the SmackDown series because they were GameCube exclusives during an era when that console was struggling, but anyone who actually played them knows they're criminally underrated. However, when all is said and done, there's one title that consistently gets named as the undisputed best wrestling game ever made. Here Comes the Pain isn't just a great wrestling game, it's a masterpiece that has never been surpassed, and it's been 22 years. Released in October 2003 for the PS2, Here Comes the Pain took everything that made wrestling games fun and perfected it in one impossibly good package. The gameplay was fast-paced but weighty, with every move carrying brutal impact. The roster was absurdly good. The season mode was groundbreaking with enough variety to keep coming back. The addition of the Elimination Chamber, First Blood matches, and improved creation tools made this the most content-rich wrestling game ever made at that point. You could walk around the arena, get into random fights, start feuds organically, and feel like you were actually living the life of a WWE superstar. What's remarkable about Here Comes the Pain is the fact that people still play this game in 2025. The animations hold up, the gameplay feels better than most modern games, and the overall presentation captures WWE at its absolute peak. If you only play one wrestling game in your entire life, make it this one. Here Comes the Pain isn't just the best SmackDown game, it's the best wrestling game, regardless of whether you grew up as a fan during the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era, or the PG Era. Speaking of eras, check out this video next about the most loved versus most hated WWE eras.